very much for taking your time. If you don't know me, let me introduce myself. My name is Faradilah Meza Rosadi. You can call me Farah. I am a student from State Polytechnic Jember, especially in Agribusiness Management Department and Agroindustry Management Study Program. Today, I am going to be talking about marketing management. I hope my presentation interesting for you and isn't going to take a long time. We as marketers should know characteristics of consumer. Now let me begin to explain that I want to talk about what are the characteristics of consumer. Secondly, for what we must study the characteristic of consumer. And the last, how we face up to consumer with various characteristics. Let me go into some more detail about characteristic of consumer. Why marketers need to understand the characteristic of consumer? Because understanding the characteristic of consumer is very important, which will influence the profit we get from sale. Every consumer has different characteristics. Therefore, we as marketers must be able to provide good and corresponding a response with different handling methods too. What are the characteristics of consumer that must be known by marketers? There are 5 characteristics of consumer that must be known by marketers. Firstly, potential consumer are those who show interest in our product or service. Secondly, new consumer are those who are new of buying to the product for the first time. Third, the impulsive consumer is the one that buys suddenly and without a plan. And then, the consumer discount is those who buy if there are only discount. Finally, the loyal consumer of those who buy to faithful can be due to quality, brand, or habit. Meanwhile, why should we know the characteristic of consumer? The purpose of knowing the characteristic of consumer is to know the habit and desire of consumer each characteristic. How do we face up to consumer with various characteristics? Namely, by classifying each consumer according to their characteristic. Next, we have to do an approach of the consumer. And the last, we must devise a strategy to face up to them. So, for those of you who want to be marketers, you need to know and understand in advance about the characteristic of consumer. If we know characteristic of consumer, it will influence the profit we get from sales. Therefore, it is very important to study distinct consumer of characteristic marketers. This is all my presentation. Hopefully, the knowledge we discussed today is useful for of all us, especially marketers. If there are words or sentences that are wrong, please forgive me. See you!